The room fell silent in a way that felt perilous rather than awkward or uncomfortable. Evelyn Braxton didn't hesitate when Tamar Braxton spoke those comments, which were connected to HIV accusations that had been discussed in whispers for years, but never on TV. She firmly shut it down. Insiders claim that this was neither a dramatic pause nor a warning look. This mother made the snap decision to at all costs preserve the family name. Evelyn thought Tamar had crossed a line that would never be crossed again. Not in public, not on TV, never. Tamar was gone in an instant. Began the program. One mention, no sisterly debate, no group vote, no opportunity for clarification, and the door was slammed shut. It's not just what Tamar supposedly said that makes this moment so incendiary. That's the reason she mentioned it. According to sources, Tamar felt trapped, set on fire, and forced into quiet for years. She thought the accusations were deliberately concealed to maintain the family's good reputation rather than being random rumors. Furthermore, she wasn't attempting to be careless when she eventually stated it aloud. She was attempting to be truthful. Evelyn, however, had a different perspective. She believed that Tamar had threatened more than just one individual. Reputation. She put the entire Braxton legacy, the show, the money, the brand, and the meticulously crafted story they had spent decades creating, in jeopardy. Evelyn chose the family name over her daughter at that very time. According to reports, the cameras ceased filming. Sisters froze, producers panicked, and Tamar quickly realized that there were boundaries to truth in this family, and she simply crossed them. Because once certain words are uttered, they cannot be edited. And there was no turning back once Evelyn Braxton determined that tomorrow was a burden. The occasion didn't begin loudly. It was tense at first. The tension that permeates a room long before someone says something inappropriate. Already, cameras were in motion. The microphones were hot. The family was already agitated. Worn out by reopening old wounds. The one thing Evelyn Braxton had spent years ensuring never happened on TV was subsequently done by Tamar Braxton. Everyone was warned never to say, she added, referring to long-circulated rumors and accusations that had lingered in whispers, blogs, and private conversations for years, but had never crossed the invisible boundary into the actual show. According to several insiders, the atmosphere abruptly altered as soon as Tamar brought them up. Evelyn refrained from shouting. She refrained from cursing. She didn't ask Tamar to elaborate. She got to her feet. Everyone understood this was over at that point. Evelyn's face reportedly turned icy. The expression that doesn't originate from only rage, but out of dread. Dread of what happens when particular subjects are made public, not dread of the truth. Tamar had not just stepped over the queue, in Evelyn's opinion. In the center of the family's most treasured possession, she put off a bomb. Production workers who later spoke anonymously said that the show's cameras were told to stop almost instantly. Producers rushed. Helpers hurried in. Viewers were not present when Evelyn turned to face Tamar and said, "You're done." Not yelling. Not debating. Just final. Tamar apparently froze when she realized something terrible. Why she brought it up was irrelevant. No matter how much pain she was in, it made no difference. No matter how long she had felt quieted. Control was what was important. Insiders claim that Tamar brought up the accusations because she felt cornered. It was said that the debate had become accusatory of her. Her responses, her history, her acts. Once more, she felt gaslit, scapegoated, and blamed. And she went for the one thing she thought proved it in that emotional pressure cooker. What could and could not be spoken had always been under the family's control. She brought up the rumors to highlight the unfair treatment rather than to make accusations. And that's precisely the reason behind Evelyn's reaction. Because certain subjects were never about truth or lies to Evelyn. They were about risk, legal risk, brand risk, reputational danger, and bringing up health-related accusations even as rumors ventured into unreachable terrain. Evelyn made the call after saying, "We are not doing this. Not here. Not ever," according to a production-related source. Tamar was taken off the program. No cooling-off period, no family vote, no private meeting to resolve the issue, just removal. According to reports, the other sisters were stunned into silence. Some sobbed, while others avoided making eye contact. Nobody stood up for Tamar at the time, not because they agreed, but more because they understood that Evelyn's choice was final. Tamar had turned into a liability to Evelyn, and liabilities don't receive screen time. According to insiders, Tamar was distraught not just because she was expelled, but also because the reason validated her long-held belief that the Braxton family had two sets of rules. One for potential topics of discussion privately, and another for things that could never be acknowledged in public, particularly when they entailed accusations that might get out of hand. The dispute continued off-screen after the cameras stopped, getting louder, messier, and more passionate. Tamar allegedly questioned why everyone else's errors were handled while her suffering was consistently suppressed. According to reports, Evelyn retorted that Tamar was unaware of the repercussions of her recent actions. And that was the breaking point. Tamar felt that she was already paying the price. The incidents would not be instantly known to fans. The video was never broadcast. Although the moment was deleted, rumors quickly spread. Crew members chatted, industry rumors circulated, and when viewers later became aware of Tamar's abrupt absence, inquiries began to fly. Why had she disappeared? Why wasn't it taken care of? Why was there no explanation? The story was only made more compelling by the stillness. According to those close to Tamar, not getting thrown off the program was the most agonizing aspect of her experience. It was the realization that truth had a cost in this family, and that she would simply become too costly to retain. Tamar Braxton is eliminated at this point in Section 1. A family that prefers silence to conflict with Evelyn Braxton in complete charge. Because rumors have nothing to do with what occurs next. It concerns whether a mother's efforts to preserve a heritage went too far. The ramifications did not immediately blow up after Tamar was taken out. It moved stealthily. Sisters taking sides without disclosing it, quiet phone conversations, and closed doors. Insiders claim that the actual harm did not occur in front of the cameras. Everyone became aware of what had just been given up to keep the machine operating in the hours and days that followed. Because the message was obvious after Tamar left. Certain topics within this family are prohibited from being discussed in public. And Tamar had just broken the most hazardous one. Production-related sources claim that the atmosphere on set changed right away. The crew was told not to talk about what had happened. It is stated that producers deleted any reference to the incident from internal notes and call sheets. Everyone present could still sense the moment hanging in the air, even though it seemed to have never happened. Insiders claim that Evelyn remained steadfast. She maintained her position and stated unequivocally that this was about defense rather than punishment. According to her, Tamar's mention, even if it was presented as a rumor or a frustration, opened the door to uncontrollable speculation after it was broadcast. Health-related claims, particularly those that have followed celebrities for years, are more than just rumors. No amount of editing can reverse the ethical, legal, and reputational ramifications they bring. And Evelyn wouldn't allow the show turned into the location where that door opened. Meanwhile, Tamar was taken by surprise. People close to her claim that she felt cornered during the fight, and thought she was pointing out hypocrisy rather than seeking to expose anyone. "I'm sick of being the emotional target of the family. In her opinion, mentioning the rumors wasn't about spreading them, even when other delicate subjects were forbidden. It was intended to demonstrate how picky the family was about what was considered excessive. However, intent was irrelevant. Impact was important, and it happened right away. The sisters' responses varied. According to reports, one sobbed and pleaded with Evelyn to change her mind. Another remained utterly mute, too terrified to even admit what had transpired. Tony did not publicly step in once more. According to insiders, she was extremely distressed yet conflicted between her devotion to her mother and her worry for Tamar's welfare. Because it perpetuated a cycle that Tamar claims she has lived with her entire life, that silence caused her great pain. Tamar becomes the issue rather than the topic of discussion when things grow awkward. Tamar is said to have asked one terrible inquiry behind closed doors. "Why does my suffering usually end up being cut?" Nobody responded to her. Rather, damage control became the main priority. Producers reportedly talked about ways to justify Tamar's absence without providing an explanation. The plots were changed. Confessionals were altered again. The family story continued as though nothing had occurred, and for Tamar, that was the last proof that the show was more important than her voice. Fans became aware almost instantly. Questions flooded social media. Why had Tamar vanished out of nowhere? Why wasn't it taken care of? Why did the season seem meaningless? Even if they weren't yet aware of it, viewers felt that something was lacking. And when rumors started to surface regarding the rumors erupted in an off-camera blow-up featuring delicate accusations. Despite the cautious language used by blogs, the story nevertheless gained traction. Details were not publicly confirmed by Tamar. She refrained from repeating the rumors. She didn't make any accusations, but she also acknowledged that a major incident had occurred. And curiosity was only heightened by that ambiguity. People close to Tamar said that she felt deceived not only by her mother, but also by the entire system that permitted to be so easily silenced. She had dedicated years of her life to the program. She had disclosed her hardships, marriages, and breakdowns, and she was eliminated the instant she brought up a topic that put the family's authority in jeopardy. That insight was profound. Evelyn, however, apparently thought she had no other option. She believed that letting the discussion go public would have drawn attention from the family. Never outrun. Once they are broadcast on television, rumors don't remain speculative. They make news, litigation, and permanent harm. Evelyn believed that in order to preserve the family, she had to make an unfeasible choice, even if it meant losing her daughter. And that's why this was such a horrible circumstance. Both women thought they were correct. Tamara thought she was at last advocating for herself. Evelyn thought she was keeping everyone else safe. The family broke up even more in the midst. The aftermath is clearly established at the end of Section 2. Tamar's family is now plagued by the realization that some truths are deemed more hazardous than others, and the show continues on without her. Because what follows isn't about if Tamar ought to have said something. The question is whether the family lost more money by trying to silence her. One reality became unavoidable by the time the dust settled. According to Tamar, this was never about a single sentence. It concerned who controls what is removed, who is shielded, and who bears the consequences when sensitive subjects jeopardize a well-managed legacy. Insiders claim that when Tamar was the family went into full preservation mode after being formally removed from the show. Information was limited, conversations became short, and invitations ceased. Tamar wasn't just taken off the set. She was cut off from planning, decision-making, and the inner circle that had traditionally centered around Evelyn's power. More painful than the actual termination was that exclusion. For Tamar, the show wasn't merely a salary. For years, her suffering had been made public there. Her blunders, marriages, breakdowns, and mental health issues were all accepted on television. However, the line was clearly established when she brought forward rumors that endangered another person. For her, that insight completely changed everything. Those close to Tamar claim that she didn't after being kicked off, they lash out right away. She became silent. She pulled back. She repeatedly relived the incident, questioning whether she could have said it differently, whether she could have been silent for a bit longer, and whether she had miscalculated the extent to which the family would go in order to keep control. The answer was obviously obvious, therefore, she stopped asking those questions after that. Quietness was the requirement, protection was selective, and compliance was the expectation. Insiders claim that Evelyn remained steadfast. She felt that Tamar's reference, even if it was presented as a rumor and there was no allegation, went beyond what could be reversed once said. Regardless of their veracity, health-related accusations have far-reaching effects. Furthermore, Evelyn refused to risk the show, the family's reputation, and decades of labor on a discussion that she felt should never take place in public. Tamar didn't just talk carelessly to her. She made a threat to the building. However, Evelyn was unaware of the long-term consequences of that choice. Tamar's absence was not forgotten by fans. They questioned it. They examined it. Additionally, when Tamar started talking more candidly in interviews about feeling excluded and silenced for sharing unpleasant realities without restating specifics, the public began making connections. It's about control, not the accusations per se. Viewers started to question why certain subjects were completely removed while others were used for ratings. Why was the suffering of one daughter deemed excessive, while the privacy of another was passionately protected? Why didn't Tamar get heard instead of being removed? The family's public image was irrevocably altered by that change in perception. Insiders claim that the sisters are now more split than they have ever been. In private, some concur that Tamar was unjustly silenced. Some people think Evelyn did what she had to do, while others think the family will never fully move past the moment trust was broken behind closed doors. For her part, Tamar hasn't reiterated the rumors. She hasn't given names. She hasn't gotten worse. And that self-control says a lot. Those close to her say she doesn't want controversy. She desires recognition. She wants the preservation of the brand to be just as important as the truth about what happened to her. And since expressing her suffering would necessitate acknowledging that image was more important to the family than mending, perhaps certain conversations were suppressed because they were risky to share rather than because they were untrue. This family might not be prepared for that reckoning. The ramifications are evident as this chapter comes to an end. Tamar was kicked out of the table. For the time being, Evelyn kept the tradition intact, and the family experienced a stillness that permeates all they do. Though the accusations themselves might never be discussed in public, they might continue to exist only in the shadows as whispers and rumors. However, the response to Tamar bringing them up has already revealed a more complex narrative about fear, power, and the consequences of speaking the truth in the wrong place. Because sometimes it's what their words threaten to reveal rather than what they say that gets someone expelled. Additionally, in the Braxton household, that the line is now permanently drawn. If you're still here, it's because you experienced the true weight of this. This wasn't your typical blow-up or dispute on reality TV. This was about who is sacrificed to preserve a lineage, power, and silence. Tamar's dramatic behavior did not result in her expulsion. Despite generating commotion, she was not removed. She went too far. Because she shouted something that was uncontrollable, uneditable, and uncontrollable. And the reaction made clear how this family behaves when its reputation is in jeopardy. No video was shown, no justification was provided, and no responsibility was accepted, just removal. And everyone ought to feel uneasy about that. Because what more has been buried if one daughter may be eliminated the instant she touches a prohibited subject? What else was considered too risky to speak aloud? And how many times has healing been subordinated to silence? This is far from the end of the story. There is still tension. It's a real distance. And behind closed doors, the fallout from that choice is still being felt. Thus, don't let this discussion end. To ensure that the truth is not obscured, like this video. When the next item eventually appears, make sure you're here by subscribing. And leave a remark underneath. Did Evelyn want to control the story, or protect her family? Should the family have confronted the issue head-on, or should Tamar have been silenced? Conflict isn't the most hazardous thing in a family. It determines who is permitted to